Turn to the estate tax. Under the Bush tax cuts in 2001, the estate tax gradually lowered to 45% for those with estates larger than $3.5 million. In 2010, the rate now stands at 0%. Come January 2011, however, just a few months from now, you could see the rate soar back to 55% on individual businesses and estates worth only $1 million or more, that according to current congressional estimates. Earlier today, I was joined by Republican Senator Jim DeMint from South Carolina. He is proposing an amendment that would put the estate tax rate permanently back to zero forever. Take a look. Senator Jim DeMint of South Carolina, welcome back to the Kudlow Report, sir.
Well, thank you, Larry. It's always good to be with you.
You know, one of the most hated taxes in America, every poll shows this, is the so-called estate tax or inheritance tax, often called the death tax. I am told you have an amendment that would eliminate this even after it expires. Can you tell us about it?
Well, Larry, as you know, in a little over 5 months, taxes are going to go up on almost all Americans, and that includes income brackets, cap gains, dividend, but also the death tax goes from 0 to up to 55%. And what we want to do is make sure that Americans are aware of who supports the death tax and who doesn't. So we're going to try to force a vote this week or early next week on eliminating the death tax. As you know, this year there is no death tax. George Steinbrenner died. He didn't pay any death tax, but if he had died next year, he would have paid over $500 million in death taxes.
He's a crafty guy. You don't think he did it on purpose, do you?
No, that's a big price to pay to get out of paying a death tax. But, I mean, it will affect a lot of families. And I've had the Farm Bureau from my state, a lot of small businesses, and people don't understand that this costs us lots of jobs. Many small businesses and farms will have to sell out just to pay an estate tax. It's really immoral. It punishes people who've worked and saved, and there's no reason in the world that we should allow this tax to come back.
Senator, if, let me just ask you, if your amendment doesn't get through, we're going to revert to 55%, as you mentioned, over half of these estates. What kind of exemptions will be allowed for that? I mean, how steep is this going to wind up being? Because many people believe this to be a sort of hidden job-killing tax, as well as an estate tax.
Well, it is a job-killing tax, and particularly in this economic environment, it makes no sense to have a small business sell out or have to reduce its size in order to pay its taxes. But the way it's set up now, there'll be $1 million exemption. So if you have one nice house that's appreciated, you're likely to reach that limit, but particularly if you have a small business that doesn't have a lot of cash value, but it has a lot of paper value to the IRS. But above $1 million, gradually the 55% cuts in. I'm not exactly sure what point you're at 55, but for the most part, if you've got a large estate that you've saved for during your whole life, you're going to be paying nearly half of that estate to the federal government.
Will you pin this amendment on the pending unemployment extension bill, or do you have another vehicle for it?
Well, we were going to put it on the small business bill that's going through right now, but it has been sidelined while we vote on the unemployment benefits. If the unemployment benefit stays on the floor a couple of days, we may just attempt to add it to that. But one way or another in the next week, we want to force a vote. I don't think it's going to pass, Larry, but I want Americans to know that this tax is coming back, and I want them to know that the Republicans do not support it coming back.
Do you have any Democratic co-sponsors or Democratic interest or Democratic votes for this thing?
Well, there have been some Democrats in the past that have worked with us on a compromise. I doubt in this environment where the Democrats are looking for more tax revenues on almost every front, whether I'm going to get any Democrat support, but I'm going to give them a chance to vote on it. And a lot of these Democrats who are from farm states and have lots of small businesses in their states are going to hear from their constituents when they vote to bring this tax back.
Why do you think, Senator, this always interests me, polls show the estate tax is really hated? I mean, overwhelmingly, more than 2 to 1, I reckon, across the board, all these polls. Only a fairly small fraction of people would, you know, move past the exemption and be forced to pay it. It seems like Americans aspire to these estates, though. Is that what's going on here, that a lot of the critics of it don't understand?
Well, I think so. I certainly, at this point in my life, don't have an estate that's going to be affected by it. But I would like to think that maybe that's possible, or maybe it's possible for my children. And I want to know that if people work hard and they save, they don't blow all their money. You know, Larry, the way it's set up, you and I could make the same income all our lives, and I could save and you could splurge, but I'm the one who gets punished when I die because they take about half of what I made. And so that's just not America. We pay taxes on this once and sometimes twice. It makes no sense when someone dies that we take their property from them. That's just un-American, it's immoral, and we need to stop it. And I think Americans need to know which party and which people in this Congress are supporting taking property when people die.
All right, it's all very interesting. You know, I talked to Senator DeMint later about this issue of proliferating pessimism, as I will call it this evening. And he had an interesting point. He said, don't underestimate free enterprise. He himself was a small businessman. He believes we can beat the pessimism, but of course, he wants to see major changes in Washington. You can see the whole interview with Senator Jim DeMint on CNBC.com. Now,